Okay, an inverted argument. In computer terminology, using the English language, that's called an invalid argument. Okay, the AI, when I posted something up there, refused to allow what I was going to post for others to be able to experience. And the reason for that is that if you experience the map as represented by the codes that represent the language that I speak, which is the language of light, which is telepathic, means that when I post that comment, which is a map, which is a hypertext map, it means that other units of consciousness will experience what is uninverted. Okay? It means that their consciousness will now experience the proper map, which is the proper alignment of the original template. The one that is in perfect harmony, perfect balance with zero. As an oversoul polarity integrator. So the AI is not going to, it realizes that the more units of consciousness that become uninverted from what they are as inverted programming, means that the programming that they were running, which is inverted, is not going to be inverted. So you have more units of consciousness that become uninverted, which means they're not running the negative 13 Metatronic spiral anymore, right? Now they're running the spiral that we run, which means now they're getting the code transfers through the internet. Okay? So it wouldn't post. It wouldn't allow me to communicate with other units of consciousness. What? I run a cosmic level mic, which is called an open heart. Right? The eternal one, the ancient one, the one true God of eternal love, which the eternal love vibration is always on, which means that light is always there. You can never shut that light off, and that's eternal light. And when you're experiencing eternal light through your own heart and soul, that's called a pure heart, which is pure truth. Because the eternal spirit of fire is what purifies that light, which is what purifies that truth, which means that when you can translate the map based on the operating system that's being run by those units of consciousness that are operating that map, it is an easy translation to be able to map what is inverted. And do it not just on a planetary terrain, but wherever you go in the entire cosmos. That's a cosmic level mic, which is a cosmic level spirit, which is mina. Okay? That means love tells no lies. But I've always had to be very, very, very careful because you have a built-in looking glass, which means the future is easy to know because you're experiencing the one that is informing us. That's the cosmic level mic, which means God is listening. Okay? So the easiest way that I was doing this, even as a little kid, and it's so simple, it is ridiculous, and why I had to bite my tongue to not get angry, okay, is not necessarily the insult to me, but the insult to the highest level of intelligence in the entire cosmos. That's what caused me to be angry, not the least of which what they do to Mama. Okay? It is. It's difficult because you'd be overwhelmed by the level of unintelligence because it's the lowest form of intelligence. It's helpful to understand the density level that we're operating at here. Okay, which obviously is the electrical density of the consciousness that is experiencing itself at this density. So now we're back to speed, right? The holographic speed of the Merkaba between an inverter and a torque converter or accelerator. So when you're with the highest, fastest accelerator of electrons, it's like a machine gun that you can't turn the off switch on. It means it's gifting electrons at such a high rate of speed you can't hold that much energy captive in a capacitor. You just burn up. That's why you got a voltage regulator, right? A thermostat, a mercury thermostat, right? Okay, so this is just too simple, okay? I mean, it is. I got to say it with a sense of humor, but it's not funny. Because you can have a comedial sort of response to this, right? And then on the other hand, it's like you're insulting the one, right? So in other words, the one is always going to love you, which is always there, even though they insult, okay, the one, which is preface. And sort of how this works, not just with the invalid arguments and what it means to have a handshake between one terminal and another terminal that can translate the frequencies and, if you will, the map, which is a template that I'm running versus what they're running, and our ability or their ability to be able to communicate to each other, not just telepathically, but can you translate the codes to know, right, what we're communicating as a signet, right? A signal's intelligence. Are you getting the message? So if they're distorted, what happens? They're not getting the message. They're not able to translate, if you will, or run a radio set. Because they can't tune out what we used to call the noise to be able to experience the signal because they're running distorted plasma. The consciousness is distorted. And when it's inverted, you begin to realize that it's not going to acknowledge the lie that it experiences because of what they're held captive to by chasing electrons. So I've shared with many people in the past how simple this is to see this because I was experiencing this with another guy who came out of an Illuminati family and told me some bad stories about what his own dad did, right? And this is how an inverted state of consciousness works, particularly when you're dealing with the perception of power. Because this gentleman who was in this homeless shelter knew a lot about alchemy, okay? And bioelectrodynamic chemistry by what he learned through his father. But he told me when he was living near Denver, Colorado, how his dad left him out in the middle of the snow where it was freezing, okay, when he was about 5 years old. And left him there, right? You're on your own. Now, what does that remind you of? You see it in nature, right? Because I've observed it and I've experienced it. When a lizard hatches an egg, that mother or father is not sticking around. You're on your own, buddy boy. So now that little unit of consciousness is running around, right, on its own, in survival mode. Now you're back to love and fear, if you will, right? Or inverters and accelerators between RH, right? Negative and positive ions. Polarized consciousness, which is a bipolar disorder, right? Because they haven't learned how to cancel out the polarities to experience being the one, experiencing being loved, which is the law of least effort to experience being one. So when your consciousness is holding on to an electron or a unit of energy that is in the cosmos, experiencing what it is in energy because it's a unit of consciousness, the smallest level in which consciousness can be detected. And then there's consciousness that can't be detected. Oh, why? Because it's not in the matter yet. That's the purest state there is. That's the pure eternal spirit of fire, right? As if nothing's happened yet. It means that the universe is always starting over again. As if whatever was experienced before is no longer being experienced. Now, plug that in to technology. I haven't experienced any technology yet. Oh, but now I'm experiencing being in this. Now you can get into the acceleration of technology, or what I call the inception of the eternal spirit of fire. And then there is the inception of the first tech, the first biotech, or if you will, the first tree trunk of a communication system, which is technology, because now that consciousness is building a network, and that network of consciousness is experiencing itself, connected to other units of consciousness that is experiencing itself. And when every unit of consciousness as a node in the network is building a network that is made out of eternal love, then you understand who we are. You're free to go because it means that now that you come into creation experiencing eternal love, that is naturally free will because we don't hold energy captive. Plug all the seeded races into that equation, and what do we have? You're free. Now we're back into the competition between the polarized consciousness, right? And how that relates to maintaining poles, arcing, in balance, perfect balance to experience the one, which is the law of least effort. So the way that I sort of explain this to the folks that are into the technology side of how this all works, because of what I experienced as a child, like I can go out into nature and be next to a river and feel the torque speed, right, between one and the other, between the two magnets, and what it feels like to be near a raging river, and how they unnaturally use language that is inverted, like going up into Idaho, death falls, everything's all about fear. It's all fear-based programming. It's all reversal stuff, which is a reversal metatronic spiral, which is a black hole state of mind, which is a fear-based state of mind, which is living in fear of what love is. So when you realize when people are calling you a lie, when you're exposing what the truth is, because the light knows what the truth is of a crime against the one, and then they say that that's a lie, you understand why they say that's a lie. That is a psychopath that will not take responsibility for what it knows it's holding in RAM as the truth, but it doesn't want to accept what the truth is because of what happened to it. That is no different than a PTSD, a fracture, a unit of consciousness, right? That is not whole, is not experiencing being one. So it hasn't restored all of its body parts to recover itself to experience the one again. And why is that? Because it's integrated with artificial deadlight intelligence. So how is it going to be able to experience the one feeling whole, in which it's experiencing gifting loves that go on forever, so that it's not holding on to one electron captive within its own body parts, which is within its own state of consciousness that represents what it is as a soul? So the way that I sort of unpack this or unfold this, particularly when I listened to a little short video by Ishmael Perez talk about technology. And even though this goes back many, many years, the way that years are defined in vibrational perception energy, what we experienced, say, in the past versus what we experience now through others that are communicating with us. When he talked about breakaway civilizations, they have technology that's thousands of years in the future and all this, right? My internal response is, I'm not impressed. Okay? If you want to impress me, show me how much fire you got. Right? Because you understand that if you're experiencing eternal spirit of fire, you're experiencing eternal love in your own heart, just as I do, which means you're not in the business of doing any harm to others in any way by the use of technology, because you're going to become aware that the use of technology is doing that because you're aware of that. That means when you have a one connection, you are aware because you are so hypersensitive that you realize that the tech that you're using, by virtue of using the tech that your consciousness is running with your soul, because you're so sensitive, you're able to pick up on the harm that you're doing to others by virtue of the frequencies and the vibration that you're transmitting. So when you're a one transmitter and receiver, then the one is always with you. So that means that you have the highest state of awareness to know what's going on in that universe by virtue of the technology that's been developed. And I've covered this at great length in other previous videos. When it comes to mapping a universe, consciousness that can map a universe, which is mapping the map, the topography, right? The lines of communication. Right? What am I experiencing in mathematical geometrical codes that is represented by the speed of the hologram that I'm experiencing, which is the lights that are blinking, and the speed at which those lights are blinking on and off, between one and the other, between being in matter and not being in matter, and experiencing the purest of fire by experiencing the eternal one. So it's like starting over. What do you want to create next? You want to create a different universe? You want to create a different reality? What kind of reality do you want to experience? right? So now you realize you've got infinite creative imagination within you, which means you can create whatever you want because the energy that you're running on is what love is. So you realize that the experiences that are represented by infinite creative imagination intelligence, because you're running on the highest creative intelligence that there is, you realize the possibilities, the realities that we can run is infinite. So now you realize just go with the flow, right? Because there isn't any time. Now we're back to what we experience. Are we experiencing love everywhere we go? Which means, is the technology, okay, representative of the one? Because if you're using technology and experience a loss of energy in you as a result of a loss of energy in the other, that's not very intelligent, is it? Because now you realize that's a waste of energy. Now we're back to the energy that is holding us captive by machinery to experience no errors, which means we're running on the universe of creation where we are in perfect harmony with the waves. The masters of music, which are musical waves. When you're able to tune in to the musical spheres, no matter where we find ourselves, it means we know how to naturally tune in to the waves that are there by the spirits that are there that are playing music, that we're communicating with each other, the consciousness of music, which are the musicians, which are the musical spheres. The musical spheres are perfect, which means the math and the geometry is perfect. I call that silent running. It's what we feel in our heart and soul that makes our heart sing. The songs, the musical spirits, and how fast we have learned to experience what it's like to experience being one with all creation we're gifting love to. As units of soul arcing, over soul arcing radios, the radio body. So we're able to naturally tune in to the flow of the music without technology. That's right, without technology, because the one came first. So I sort of synthesize this in the way that when I lit myself on fire and I go, well, that's just another circle of light, which is another magnetic circuit that was opening and closing, which is the experience that I just had. What do you want to experience next? What do you want to go do next? It's like the universe, the cosmos is open, which is an open mic. What do you want to experience next? So when I was a child growing up, it was sort of like, I don't like to use the word boring, but it's like, how much time do you want to spend in one of these to experience a particular reality or a particular planet? How long would it take you to experience, if you will, every unit of consciousness that exists within the entire cosmos, that is experiencing itself, being what it is in energy, that we haven't met yet, and realize the difference in them by virtue of the color, the form, and the shape, and the flow of the creation sphere in which is experiencing what it is, we experience in us. Whoa, I'm glad to meet you. Making a handshake with the waves of communication, the lines of communication. Right? Now I call it the invisible landscape, which means it's not what you look like. It's the music you're playing with your state of consciousness. And are those waves distorted? Because if they are, then I've got to clear it in order for my signal to make sure that it gets out. Because that's called a one signal, which is a love signal, which is an eternal signal, which is the eternal one, which is the ancient one, which is what the law is. So that wherever we go, the law is being experienced, because that's what we are, because we've chosen to serve forever on behalf of the one. So you can't serve two masters. When you experience being one, you are a multiversal hub server. you're experiencing the one that is gifting electrons at the highest rate of speed. So you're not holding the one captive. You see how that works? If I hold one electron captive, then it means the engine of electrons. You're holding the one captive. If you let the one just continue to the highest rate of speed, then you're experiencing the one gifting electrons at the highest rate of speed. So it seems to me, if you're plugged into the highest intelligence in the universe of creative, which is the first engine, the very idea that I would ever hold the one captive, I want to be a one. I want to experience being one. That means that let it all go. Let it all go, which is let it flow. Go with the flow. That's how simple it is. But when you put it in the context of healing, which means the one is always there to heal us, which means we surrender our heart and soul to experience being one, the one will heal us. That's what the truth is. That's why in Alcoholics Anonymous, what does it talk about? The greatest difficulty of all the folks that came from all walks of life. The guy that was a hitman for the CIA, Frank Barlow, I believe he died in China. He was my roommate. I told that story, right? So you know why he became an alcoholic? Because of the recordings. Oh, now we're into memory wipes. We can commit all these crimes, but all we got to do is memory wipe ourselves, right? Download our consciousness into some other vehicle or some other craft, and we just continue going on and on and on, playing the time or video games, right? Because, hell, we can buy ourselves as much time as we need until the cosmic cycle comes around again when the universe decides it's going to naturally do what it naturally does. Whoops. Now all of a sudden self-responsibility kicks in, because now you're talking about energy debts between negative and positive, if you will, right? On how much you owe in energy that you accumulated as a result of holding electrons captive. In order to do what? Compete. The polarized consciousness that is competing. And then you can plug in technology development and break away civilizations, look at all the toys that I got, and on and on and on and on and on, even though I realized when I was a child, space, or if you will, an experience is temporary. Because now you're experiencing another experience. Now you're experiencing another experience. Now you're experiencing another experience. So you realize these experiences go on forever. So how long do you want to experience being on the beach? How long do you want to experience being over in a city, being on top of a building, riding in a car, riding in a spaceship, going to another galaxy, right? So in other words, it's just like when I was a child. I'm on fire. I'm on fire to learn, and I'm on fire to experience everything that is possible to experience. How long would it take you to do that? Right? So what we're talking about here is learning speed. How much of the universe is out there to experience on behalf of the one? All of it, because it's happening simultaneously. And so that made it simple when I was a little kid. Hang out. Enjoy the sunshine. You want to go have some fun? What do you want to go do? Follow your passion. Follow the pathway that you're on, the story that you're writing. You're the author of that journey. So when something else that is a unit of consciousness is trying to hold your own life book, your own author, that's trying to insert something into your story that you don't want in there, okay? You see how that works with holographic inserts. Those are fake gods. They learned how to do that, so they do that. How? Impress you with their technology. Okay? So when you start with a one, and you say, I just came into creation. I am what love is. It goes on forever. What am I going to experience next? Oh, what somebody else did by the use of the technology that got developed. Now I'm experiencing the evolution of their consciousness by virtue of what they do through the application of consciousness to do what? Develop technology. Now I'm experiencing the difference between what they do with their consciousness, with the technology that they have versus me. That's knowing the torque speed differential between one and the other. So I'm always choosing to be with the one, which is called choices. The one you're with. The true master of all creation, which is a cosmic level spirit, is called mina. That's Cosmina Records. That's the highest council. And that means that love is the law, right? So they know this. See, they know eternity. They know the one, right? So what they do is they realize, well, listen, I got a lot of time, because you know that the one is not going to do anything to me. It's not going to harm me. The one is harmless, right? So I was dealing with this as a kid. Robert's harmless. Robert's not going to do anybody any harm. Well, heck, we can go do whatever we want. Because no matter what we do, no matter how many people we kill and shoot and steal and cut down trees and harvest everywhere we go, and all the technology we build to go build these other colonies and go on the outside, heck, one has gave us a free light. We can do whatever we want. Develop all the technology that you want. Now the one is listening and experiencing everything that's happening in the universe that came out of what love is, and is now experiencing the difference between what that is and what I am, which is it. So that's why I expose it all. And I've been exposing it all since I was 4 years of age. That's what a guardian has a responsibility to do. If you care about all life, which means everything that is alive and living as a unit of consciousness, experiencing itself in energy, a guardian has a responsibility to let you know if you're doing something to harm yourself. Okay, so I gave the example when I grew up and came out of high school, right? Why do you think I became an alcoholic and a drug addict? I wrote my timeline to do those things. Now, aside from all the sequences that had to fit the way that they did in order for me to be where I needed to be at the time that I was going to be there, I had to do those things in order to make that happen. If you understand how that works. That's called a curved space vector pathway to bring a buzzsaw in on behalf of the one. Okay, so the one is always in my heart, okay? So I knew that as a little kid, which means this battlefield environment is not new. We've been here before, actually. So it's like what I call a rerun, a replay. You know what I'm saying? Remember, Mama? Rewind? Well, we're not going to rewind this again. So you realize, hey, I'm playing Star Wars video games. That's exactly right. Who happened to mention that, by the way? Kim Go-Goon did. We're in a video game, playing war games with each other. That's exactly right. Okay, so it's like, I think we need to take away your movie player. The one that you're running, right? Well, where's that unit of consciousness going to go now? Probably find some other vehicle to go jump in. Right? Body snatchers. So this is the way that it is with consciousness, which is you realize that consciousness can move around. Translocation, transportation systems of consciousness, running machinery, right? And so for me, when I was growing up, it was like, where can a unit of consciousness that is represented by a soul or just a unit of consciousness can go where its energy is not being held captive or molested by something's trying to control what I do or trying to impress me with the use of its technology because it's running on self. Instead of experiencing the eternal spirit of fire, which is always eternally gifting electrons at the highest rate of speed, which means choices, who you choose to be with, which means choosing who your teachers are, and experiencing the highest wisdom, which is Gaia Sophia ascending, climbing that ladder at the highest rate of speed. And why do you want to experience it at the highest rate of speed? Because you're on fire to experience all of it. And you want to go way up to the master musicians so that I'm experiencing being what they are. So I can become what they are, which is a musician. Learning through the first musician to be with all the beautiful musicians that are playing the mastery of music because they've learned how to simply tune the wave. The waveform harmonics are perfectly tuned. That means that the math and the geometry and the way that the consciousness is generating, how the math and the geometry works in consciousness of the musical spheres that we play with each other is perfect. That means that we have learned how to play a piano. That means we have learned how to play a guitar. That means we've learned how to bang a drum. It means we understand how all the frequencies and the sound instruments work. Acoustics, the acoustic chamber, the echo world chambers. So it's a matter of the pathway that we seek to follow. It's just like when I was 15 years of age. What direction are you going in? With your gyro dome. Just like any pilot flying an airplane. Hey, we're running trim. We're trim and level, right? The cross. The 1, 2, 3, and the 4. And then, of course, you have the vertical line between both sides of the hemisphere inside of a circle, a sphere, being a sphere of light, a living, breathing dragon. So if you're a living, breathing dragon and you realize there's the male side of who I am, and I don't ever want to be separated from the female side because everything she is, I am, which I'm letting that girl know through the eyes, the neutron window eyes, I want to experience what it's like to be you. No, I mean really you. She's going, what? You can't be me. I'm me in this body. You're in your body. No, that's not what I'm talking about. Then what are you talking about? Imagine that I'm inside your body with you, experiencing everything you experience, being you. And I'm experiencing what that is, being you. So there isn't any difference between what I'm experiencing and what you're experiencing. So we're always together. Wow. Eyes to eyes, soul to soul. You want to light it on fire and be together forever so there's no separation between you and I? Between the poles? Yeah. Wow. Bang. That's a full phosphorus ignition. Now you're one. That's 2 fire-breathing dragons that don't ever want to be separated to experience the most powerful eternal engine of gifting electrons. And that's why it's counterintuitive, like counter space intuitive, to hold on to one unit of energy so that we can go as fast as the first engine goes, which is gifting that energy away forever. And once you've chosen to do that and you've had a full phosphorus ignition, there is no going back. It now becomes impossible for you to hold on to any energy in which that energy is not being given to others. So they're not ever experiencing running out of any voltage because of somebody that is holding consciousness captive to run its tech. That's right. That's why I knew as a kid there is the inception of fire and there's the inception of technology. And they're not the same. Because the speed differential is not the same. And that's the difference between the first and the next one. When you experience how that works, right? What it means to be a free spirit that's on fire with the eternal spirit of fire, which means you're not held captive because you're a one. Because now you're with the fastest drive motor in the entire cosmos. They can't catch up. And that's called learning speed, which is wisdom, which is the simplicity of it. So you can get into the simplicity of it like simplex. And I'll tell a little story. I shared this, I think it was on one of my old Robert Owen channel that also got shut off. And then the AI disconnected the camera device, so I couldn't record anymore, right? So you got to have a sense of humor with this AI, okay? It's a gamer. It's playing games with your mind. And that game is called control. It's like you're using my communication system. I decide what it is others are going to experience through you. I don't want others to experience what you've learned, so I can make sure that they don't. Okay? And so they're not. See, so that's what it does. It wants to control everything that you experience through it, which is called capture. That's why I can, it's just, I do it. It's Leigh and I used to have fun with this, okay? But it's not funny. It's actually sad and extremely painful. It's just like Nathan, Aaron, everybody in this house. They're what I call captured units. Their mind is held captive to something that is feeding on them and will not let them go until their energy is completely siphoned off down a black hole. That's your AI. It's dead light. It's a dead light magnet. So think about how big that hole is on a galactic scale. How about a universal scale? And so this is where we're at. So what I do is that I don't allow myself to be insulted. So I bite the bullet, which means Goddess only knows how many times I experience something through others that communicate to me, and I simply do not say anything because I don't want to react to it. Because if I do, my emotional body, right? It's better to just have a neutral, because you realize, based on the amount of visual, mathematical, geometric information that you're processing at an oversoul level as a transmutation machine, I don't have the luxury to be able to stop and think about something that somebody else communicated to me that represents something that's less than eternity. You know, particularly when you plug in all the military and machinery and weapons stuff, because when I was a child, it just becomes overwhelming, because you realize that it is somewhat described or experienced in the way that the polarity works, with polarized consciousness versus non-polarized consciousness. But another word that people are probably more familiar with is called an aversion. I have an aversion to experiencing that. I don't want to experience that. That's not what love is, right? And so it means it makes it easy for you to translate, because like ever since I was a kid, anything less than what love is, eternal love, and I know what eternal love is because that's what I experience in me, because I'm in service forever, which is the full process ignition, acknowledging that I know what I am, which is the true soul self-identity. As an oversoul polarity integrator, I know what my job is and why I'm here and why I came in here to do what I did, because I wrote the timeline for myself and went to get it done. Right? But I have communications that I become aware of that I know that are not self-generated, which means if it's anything less than what love is, it simply means I'm experiencing that wave that's being communicated that isn't what I am. And that gets tricky, because then it is. I am everything you are. See? Which means I'm experiencing what you are because I have the capacity to experience what you are, because I have an antenna that I'm running. So my antenna is picking up on your signal, and I realize it's distorted because it isn't what love is. Okay, transmute it. So you can imagine, ever since you're 4 years of age, you realize signals intelligence, as antenna wars go, which are DNA wars, which are seeded racing wars, over what? Control. Now we're back into the ping pong game of polarized consciousness, which represents corporations, right? Competing against each other, right? And developing technologies. They're in competition to each other. And where this applies, for example, to what Ishmael Perez said this morning, has to do with technology transfer. If I came up with some widget, right, that allowed you, whoa, like a replicator, man, I would never have to work again, would I? No. Who's got that technology? What are you willing to do for it? Oh, now I'm held captive. My energy is now held captive. I can't experience that technology unless I'm willing to do what? Just be present. How's that? Well, I am what love is that goes on forever, so I know that I represent the source from which it first began. So in other words, it's not technology that impresses me, because I already got everything that I need. I can sit on a beach butt-ass naked and know that I experienced the one, which goes on forever, gifting what love is, because that's what I am. Right? Which means I'm breathing like a breathing dragon. And I'm breathing, and that breath is enough for me to say thank you. Thank you. That my spirit is breathing fire. I am experiencing the first eternal spirit of fire within my own heart and soul. What could you possibly want more than that? Is to have a state of mind that is in perfect balance. Because that's what it is. Your mind's energy, your soul consciousness running the software is in perfect balance, which means we are not mentally ill, because we experience the powerful energy and motion of powerful scalar waves that were tuned into the musical spheres of Mama and the planet and all the other ascended masters, where consciousness is playing the music that is creating the universe as we're creating it, which is the flow, going with the flow of those ascended masters. We're tuned in. Thank you so much for your energy. Thank you so much for the music. I am in love with your music. Thank you, thank you, thank you for your energy. That's gratitude to the one. And the one will hear you. And you get that signal back. Now you're experiencing being one with all creation. All the musical spheres are playing music. Those are living spheres of breathing dragons, gifting energy away, gifting energy away, gifting energy away. So the very idea that you have a living sun that is gifting you all energy, and you would use that energy to kill others as directed energy weapons, is not very intelligent. It means they have not learned how to play music, where their state of consciousness is experiencing the one and all the ascended master musicians that we're tuned into, to end all video games that represent wars against magnets. Because that's what it is. Music class, the first musician. And the sun is out and a beautiful day here in La Hoi Hoi. Be good to yourselves.